taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week.
This is Augmented Reality,
Presented by the Triple S League.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast for July 25th, 2020. This is your source for news, leaks, and analysis about games in the gaming industry. Saturday edition of the show, always a fun one. My name is Ash. I'm here as always with Obsidian. We've got Moontag with us back again as well. Welcome.
Hello.
So it's great to have you here. It's great to have Saib as well. But, you know, great to have fresh blood to provide us with some thoughts and opinions. Moontag's going to be a more regular voice that you're going to hear on the channel. So yeah, hope you like her. Good morning, everybody, or afternoon, evening, wherever you are listening in the world. If you are listening live, please do say hello in the live chat. Send us your questions and comments there as well. We'll read and respond to as many as we can throughout the podcast. Don't forget to slam that like button. It likes it rough, and it tells us and YouTube that you appreciate this content. And if you're listening after the fact on one of the audio-only platforms, we are glad you're here as well. But you're getting the show a lot later than everybody else, so definitely come subscribe to the Triple S League YouTube channel. A lot of other content there in addition to the podcast, so definitely come check it out. All right, so the Xbox Games Showcase took place a couple days ago. We live streamed it. Well, I live streamed it with the regular Cyberpunk 2077 community podcast crew. It was a fun time.
It was
a fun time, but we were all a little underwhelmed by the show. There was some, we'll kind of go through it, do a recap of some of the highlights, some of the lowlights, but it kicked off with Halo Infinite, and reactions have been, I don't want to say, like, I will say they were mixed, I guess, because reactions to the actual visual aesthetic of the game, I haven't seen anything positive. But that's not to say that the game doesn't have positive aspects to it. Doesn't mean to say that it's going to be a bad game. We'll kind of break that down and go through it. What looks good about it, what looks bad. We've got some screenshots to take a look at. We'll do a quick recap of the rest of the Xbox Games Showcase, and then we've got some news about Ubisoft. Some more in-depth reporting by Jason Schreier on misconduct and basically some toxic culture within the company that's recently, it looks like they're shaking things up. Looks like they might be doing things differently in the future, but there's definitely been, there was some insightful stuff in the reporting that really kind of shows.
This is stuff, this is what, I've known a lot of this stuff for years. I have had a lot of rumors. And now I finally have like a face and a name to a lot of what I was hearing, because I would always hear about it as like, you know, oh, the boss or the guy who basically greenlights this and
yeah,
I mean the story's coming out
now. And
yeah, well, one of the main reasons why I never really talked about it like in detail is that the rumors were insane. Like, the guy hosted meetings in a strip club and would spit at the idea of having a female lead character.
Yeah,
like the ultimate form of hypocrisy, by the way, and this really grinds my gears, is the amount of absolute hypocrisy that just shows up all the time, where these people are like, oh no, we really like, you know, this, that, and the other thing, and then it's like, well, what do you guys do for it in like reality? Like, where's your actual, like, you know, money where your mouth is? And it's non-existent. Typically, it's just non-existent, and it's so insulting in this case. It really is, like, just,
well, and we see it with all kinds of the big companies. There was that meme of the Bethesda logo being rainbowified, you know, everywhere except in certain countries where that kind of thing might be frowned upon. But it's like, okay, where's the consistency in your principles, Bethesda? Like,
yeah, right.
And so yeah, so which story do you want to hit first?
Let's
'Cause I'm
talk
probably
about
gonna rant
Xbox. The
considerably.
Ubisoft stuff is not fun. So let's put
Yeah.
that at the end. Um, let's talk about Halo and the Xbox. All of the
My
Xbox
favorite,
conference.
my absolutely favorite game trailer was was the one that actually just mentioned Cyberpunk. If you want the biggest, the most amazing game this year, wait for Cyberpunk.
Yeah. So
Oh, great.
that was for the game Grounded, which was
Mhm.
a title from Obsidian, which looks like it's going to be a multiplayer survival title.
Mm-hmm.
But the premise is that you get your tiny characters, like Honey I Shrunk the Kids kind of situation,
Yeah.
almost like in a backyard scenario.
It's kind of
Yeah.
how I feel like in real life running around.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to play that one. It looks so cute.
It does. And you know what? Maybe like with friends, it would probably be a fun time. I said live on while we were live streaming that we I'd be more interested in it if it has a single player story mode.
Mm-hmm.
But to each their own, right? Like if you like the multiplayer survival, it does look like it's a fun time. So Obsidian made a pretty strong showing, a surprisingly strong showing.
Mm-hmm.
Like they
Well,
announced three things.
Yeah, and that Grounded game has been basically just a concept demo put together by a very, very small team of people.
Interesting.
Like a ridiculously small team. I guess from if to believe, I heard that when they were originally starting on the concept, it was 4 people that were making that game. So
Wow.
and this is what I've been saying for a while is that there's a couple of companies that offer real, true, actual, deep progression as far as like pushing companies to do new and better things. But most of them, unfortunately, are stifled by big corporate procedure and no, you can't make the game you want to make. You have to make the game that the analysts tell you is the approved version or the approved thing in which you have to make it, and it's just kind of like, it's just like, really, you can't just make a good game that you think is going to be good. You have to like pitch it, then pass it, then do all this stuff, and instead of just like getting down and making the darn thing. And this is what we're seeing now that Microsoft is in charge here. It's like, no, you guys got a good concept, run with it. Work on it.
Yeah.
Do what you want. And
There's
we're
something
gonna
to be
like
said for that. Yeah. I mean, I do get that there are some budget constraints. If you're going to pour, you can't just have, if you are a publisher that owns a studio, you can't just have them running off on every, putting that development money into every whim of an idea they have. But to allow a greater degree of freedom, to let them create some stuff and bring it to you and be like, here's what we've been working on. Do these look good to you? Yeah, definitely something to be said for that.
Yeah, like it's one thing to have like certain parameters set to achieve a kind of outcome, but it's another thing entirely when there's so much red tape you can't like feasibly get anything done.
Oh, exactly. And I mean, out of every if you can, like, if you have the freedom to let your studio say create, instead of creating one idea and making an elaborate pitch, if they could create 10 concept demos and then you can pick the best ones, that's probably, you're going to get something really good. And then maybe there's 2 or 3 others that are like, okay, we like those as well. We'll put a smaller team on developing those. Maybe you get 4 games out of it instead of just one. I don't know, just kind of
Exactly, like spread
spitballing
the
here.
resources. Right?
Well,
Like,
so
don't put
no,
all your eggs in one basket.
yeah, and this is what I've been talking about for a while with Microsoft. Microsoft understands now that the gaming industry is not something that you can be like, all right, we need to make 5 games, and all 5 of those games have to be the top selling games of the year. It's like they cannot do that. Nobody can. Nobody can sit down and say, we're going to make this, we're going to make this, we're going to make this, and it's just going to be better, and it's going to be this, and it's going to be that. And like, nobody does that. Nobody can do that. And you're an idiot if you think that you can, or that if you think that anybody else can. It's just not how creativity and art works. Art cannot be, compiled down into its basic format. You have to, and then pump out like, good quality. You have to literally sit there and go, okay, well, you know what, I'm going to do what we can to create, the content and the ideas and the concepts that make a good game. I'm going to foster this inside a community of developers, and they are going to make a ton of stuff, and we're going to have some failures, but we're also going to have some successes.
Exactly. If there was a mathematical formula for figuring out, okay, this is going to be the top selling game of the next year, like that just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Like that's what everybody would be
nobody...
doing. You'd have 12 companies making exactly the same game.
Yeah, which is what we get with games of the month, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we've got what is that called?
Overwatch.
Yeah, all the Overwatch clones, and
Yeah,
then all of the
Battle
other ones.
Royale games. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
there was
and all the Battle Royale games
of it, and like never mind all the like extra shooters that came out.
Mm-hmm.
The FPS, like, oh man, like, because I was playing Borderland for like the longest time, and then like a whole bunch of like the Destiny came out, District came out, and I was just like, wow, there's a lot of shooty shoot games. What the heck's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wow, right? Because you're expecting one thing, and then that's all you get from these studios. It's just the repetition of like, oh, this is going to be great, and then this is going to be great, and it's just the same garbage over and over and over again. And then the real inspiration comes from these smaller studios that just keep on pumping out the good stuff. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how this progresses, because what we're seeing that Microsoft is saying, yeah, we're making as many games as we can, and we're just going to make whatever works. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. So,
and maybe not every game needs to sell 10 million copies to be considered a success. Maybe you put a smaller amount of resources into making a smaller game that's going to appeal to a smaller audience, but you still get a return on investment on that, on those dollars. So, speaking of that, though, like we definitely saw Obsidian coming out with, again, they made a very strong showing in the sense that they announced 3 things, whereas the rest of the studios that were featured was at most one thing that they announced. So Obsidian announced DLC for the Outer Worlds, which looks pretty good, and then they announced that Grounded game, and then they announced Avowed. So the first-person RPG that they're working on looks like a first-person RPG, like an immersive first-person RPG set in their which universe is it? It's set in an established universe. Pillars of Eternity? Is that theirs? Somebody told me the other. Hold on, I'm gonna look this up here.
So yeah, this is a game that one of my contacts at Obsidian, they heard me like, you may or may not know, I have some strong feelings about the whole first person in Cyberpunk, and they sent me a thingy a couple of weeks ago, and they're like, you're really not gonna like our next game. And I was like, why? Are you doing a battle royale? Please don't tell me you're doing a battle royale. And they're like, something. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not enough to go off of. So, but yeah, now I see why. It's the fact that we've got first person this. So yeah.
So they knew you personally would not like it, but
but I think overall, I think this is like, again, I'm not against first person games. I'm not. I'm against I'm not against them in any capacity. I think they're great. I think they're fine. Doom, is trendsetter, and without a lot of those types of games, you wouldn't have stuff, But it's just like, for me personally, I can't play them. and I prefer not to have them, or I prefer to have choice. And I've always said that. I've always said I prefer to have choice. I prefer to have both options. And if you want to tell me the story through a first-person perspective, you can do that. It's called the camera swap, and during cutscenes and stuff. But you do not need to like force me to only play one perspective. And I don't think anybody should be forced to play one perspective, because that's everybody has different tastes, everybody has different styles, everybody has different ideas and concepts when it comes to what a good game is, and that's completely fine. Like that's art, and I wouldn't want to walk into a museum and start telling people how they should or should not appreciate art. Like that seems ridiculously stupid, but I also feel that the artist is not necessarily supposed to tell you how to enjoy their art either.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't like it when studios like mandate it or direct it. But I understand that some games it's like designed to be like that, right? It's like a symphony versus a painting. Yes, one of them you can only enjoy visually or auditory, with just by hearing it. It's like there are aspects of it that you may or may not be able to enjoy without those senses. So again, it's completely understandable. Not against this in any way, shape, or form. I think this is pretty cool. The way that they're doing this, and I hope that they find pretty good success. So
it would be cool. It did look like one that would be awesome to have a third person option for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that could be said about a lot of games. There's some games that would not work well. Like, for example, Dishonored. The game would change a lot if you moved it to a third person perspective. But for an RPG like that, I feel like a third person option would be good. What was that, Moontag?
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Like having the option to like zoom in and out of first person, third person is like definitely a characteristic I really enjoy in certain games.
Well, it's like,
It's like mhm.
yeah, that's one area where Bethesda got it right. You have the option in both Fallout and the Elder Scrolls. You have the option to play third person or first person. I usually chose first person. Cybe, 100% third person typically.
Not always. Like so, aiming a bow, I always move it into first person.
Right.
And I utilize actually, which is kind of funny. I utilize a more advanced first person camera mod than is found in regular like first person games, but I only use it when I'm doing like draws or when I'm look like I'm talking to a main character and there's a fairly big cutscene. Usually I always go in first person for that. But as soon as I start moving, I have to move it out. And so I mean I would be so no, that's the way. And I think Obsidian is going to do a really good job with this, because they've been learning a lot. They learned a lot from Outer Worlds, and I think that again, it's like I hope, of course, that one day we can get more of these games with a combination of first and third person, but it doesn't wreck my enjoyment of other people's enjoyment for the title.
Do you prefer Moon? Do you usually prefer first or third?
Well, it honestly depends on the game that I'm playing, right? Like if I'm running around, I think there was a game called Earth Song or something like that I was playing, where it's like a little RPG, and like I run around battling like monsters and building my bonds with my companions, and I love like the third person look of it. So I was like, look at my little character go, oh my gosh, what a cute story, and look at them interact with things. But like if I'm playing like a shooter, like I definitely want to have like my vision on the sights instead of watching my character put their vision on the sights. It just works better that way. Or even like watching my character run around in like Assassin's Creed and like just seeing like the coolness of like, look at my outfit, it's pretty awesome, look at this set of gear that I got, it's so great. And like, then I'll go into like sneaky mode, and I'll go and like try to like sneak into the building, get my objectives and stuff. So like that's where I like the option a lot.
Scadril in the chat is asking, do you know who's heading this title? We know so far that Josh Sawyer isn't involved, which is weird since he led both Pillars of Eternity games. Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't know names of who's involved in what just yet, and if I did, I couldn't tell you. If it's not public.
Mm-hmm. And
Just-
yes, it
just
is.
'cause-
I confirmed it is set in the Pillars of Eternity universe.
Mm-hmm.
So established
Yeah, no,
universe with established lore. I like that a lot. We didn't see much as far as gameplay. I really liked the tracing the rune thing with the hand. I don't know, something about that was really cool. But it
I
looked,
like those tracing sigils.
so it's gonna have some magic. It's gonna have some first person combat, which
And we don't know actually. We don't know at the moment whether or not this has been designed for VR either. Like if has been designed to be both VR and non VR, then I mean that will be very interesting, and I can definitely play like VR, which again is kind of weird. It's like yes, when I have a VR headset on, I'm actually really fine. I don't have the same motion sickness that a lot of people have with that, but the minute I'm like staring down like and like I don't know what it is. I don't know why there's such a difference between those two, but there is for me. And then I know people who like they can do first person just fine. VR, they hurl like almost immediately. So it is really kind of like again, it's that whole like, whatever thing of like you don't really know why or how some people have the resistances that they have. And yeah.
I mean, probably has something to do with like in VR, you're actually moving your body around. You're actually moving your head to look around as opposed to just sitting in your chair. Lots of people, including Scadril in the chat and several others, are comparing it to Arx Fatalis. Yes, it's very reminiscent of that in a lot of ways. I thought it would be cool. It would be difficult to achieve. It would be much easier in VR. But with a mouse and keyboard setup or a controller, it would be more difficult. But if you could actually cast a spell by actually tracing a shape, and then the strength of the spell is maybe dictated by how well you trace it, that could be a cool mechanic if it was implemented right.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be, but again, it'd be difficult with
like,
conventional controls, but especially in real time. Like if the game paused and you could take your time tracing it, well, then that would be, but that would really kill immersion. So I don't know. It's something they'd have to test and probably iterate on quite a bit to get it right. But that could be very cool. So anyway, Avowed RPG, definitely keeping my eye on that one. Looks like it's going to be interesting. So then we talked about Grounded. We talked about we didn't really talk about the Outer Worlds DLC, but it looks like more Outer Worlds, and it looks, which is good. I've really enjoyed that game. But let's talk about the game that kicked off the show, Halo Infinite, which was something that we were debating beforehand. I was debating with the Cyberpunk community podcast crew whether or not they were going to start the show with Halo or end the show with Halo. They started the show with Halo. Not sure if that was a good choice or not, but anyway, that's what they did, and they just jumped right into gameplay, which was good. Now, so if we're looking at pros and cons of how they did things, showing Halo gameplay, definitely a good choice. They got ripped. They got ripped on their past events for calling things gameplay and not actually showing any gameplay. So they showed us gameplay.
The first few minutes of it. Yep.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of confusion I found. And I'm confused by this. I don't know who's in charge of their marketing department, and they didn't do a horrendous job, but they didn't do a very good job, unfortunately.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I don't know why, because they didn't showcase the game's strong points. They showcased like the old concept. So I have known for quite a while that they're trying to go back to like more of an original, like first experience Halo. That they're trying to capture that that baseline experience that a lot of people remember, and that's been so long, and it's really kind of like a nostalgia trip. Because there's all these games called Halo, and not all of them have to do with an actual Halo, which is the core concept of the lore for the baseline universe.
Mhm.
And again, not necessarily bad thing to we'd all get tired of it pretty quickly if it was all just about nothing but Halo. So
The Halo,
so there
as
is
in the setting. Like, if you're not familiar with the
yeah.
lore, like this a lot of the settings revolve around these gigantic halos that are like miniature
Mhm.
planets, like with like an ecosystem on the inside surface of this gigantic ring. It's
Mhm.
an interesting concept.
Yeah, it's very sci-fi and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that's odd is how little they actually focused in on that part of the gameplay and the story overall. In this, because this is the big thing that they're doing, is that the whole ring is explorable. That is a massive, massive, massive world to explore, essentially. This is what I've been told. This is kind of the stuff that's been, popping up and down around as far as like the stories and the events and all this kind of stuff goes, and everybody's really excited for this. But I find it just so odd that they didn't really like capitalize on showcasing that. And I could see it in the distance. I could see like the whole world and how big, and you could see like things going on in the distance, and you could see that you could just go there. But they didn't just go there. They went on and followed the very narrow story.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really weird that they're doing it this way. It's kind of bizarre. It doesn't make too much sense as far as like you have this amazing tech, which is really amazing tech, and that's why things in the game don't look as like smooth or as polished as like these games where you're fighting a long hallway, and you fight from point A to point B, and you push the story, and then you're done, and there's very little exploring to do in that world. And this was something that was not so much that way in some of the original Halos. So this is interesting to note now that there's some people who've always wanted, they've wanted the exploration, they do the exploration, but then they're like, no, 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 I wanted the exploration that we could do in like, high fidelity graphics. It's like, well, you can't have both. Like, and this is
Well,
what
why
this
can't we
this
have
is
both though? Like, you'll need to
because
explain
you
that a
just
bit.
don't you just don't have the resources. We don't have the technology to offer a 60K 4K 60 frames per second 4K visual experience on top of having a world that's the size of that is legitimately the size of New York. You just don't have that technology, period, unless you're doing like an online hosting from the cloud, basically MMO experience, and then spending years and years and years developing that.
Well,
It's like you
then how are
just
they
don't
doing
have
that? How are they doing that with Cyberpunk then?
we don't have the whole world. That's we don't have the entire city of Cyberpunk. We have bits and big chunks of it here and there, but not everything. We're not going to explore everything. There's lots of buildings we can't get into. There's lots of
Right.
when you're inside buildings, you can't explore every single nook and cranny. What they've been doing with this Halo game is they've been doing that, and they've created a lot of brilliant AI around that concept to allow you to have that like ultimate exploration.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
There's also a question in the chat from Somnolence.
Mhm.
They ask, "What would you even do if, with an open world in Halo? Hunt for collectibles?" And I'm like, "That's very true," because like as far as I know, there's like the storyline, and you go and hit these targets. Like, do you really have time to go explore everything?
well,
Like,
and
the game
so
is
I can answer that. So the I had heard this a while back. So the rumor is that basically this is like post-war sort of. There's this big battle that happened, and a whole bunch of the new covenant is spread all over the Halo ring, filled with a bunch of like the new grunt movement, not new grunt, new elite movement, the new elite movement. Um, then you've got the I can't remember. It's like the precursor robot thingies, and then you've got the humans. Um, and then you've got humans with different factions in it. So you're sitting in a world that has about half a dozen different different groups of people at a minimum, and at a maximum you're looking at like probably like several hundred, or sorry, not several hundred. You're looking at like well over a dozen different factions and different groups and different and hundreds. This is where the hundreds is. Hundreds of different locations to go to fight at, and to kind of like pull these people together and to create a movement that's going to push against it. And you're just kind of fighting everybody, and you have this huge open world with dozens of these factions and hundreds of these locations and camp locations. And each time you play the game, it's not necessarily the it's not the same experience. So this is the part that's very interesting to me, is that we're playing with this world where it's like, okay, what are we going to be able to do? What are we going to be able to play with? What are we going to be able to like set up as far as like the story and the events and the fighting and all this stuff goes? Is like, where does this all go from here?
Yeah. Well, if you have a giant open world, someone pointed out in the chat, a giant open world doesn't necessarily mean a good game. Like, it's what you do with it. And so if you have a giant open world with a bunch of factions, that's cool. But if it's primarily a combat game, like, are there going to be like NPCs you can talk to, do quests for, that kind of a thing? Or is it mostly just going to be sort of faction held locations with a bunch of NPCs standing around? Or is it going to be alive? Is there going to be stuff going on?
No. And this is the thing that I'm shocked about, that they didn't showcase. The world is more alive as far as the world goes than any other world that you've ever played in before. Supposedly, this is the stuff that I heard that was pitched out, and again, it's like, take it with a grain of salt, because I heard it from a source and I have not yet visually confirmed it. So in this world, you're going to have like the ability to like run and set up this stuff and prepare for this massive battle, this massive war to happen. And then as soon as you push out, these different areas are going to have like this butterfly effect. You're changing that aspect or this aspect or that aspect of the world is suddenly going to change everything in the world. And it's like, that is the goal, is to like make this, to get this experience to happen in this way of like, in a giant world where every choice and every interaction is basically like it's changing the world. If you wanted to go through and just favor nothing but the elites and try and like form alliances with the elites and the hunters and that kind of stuff, then that's the world that you end up getting.
Right.
So,
well, I'm still not understanding the trade-off with graphics, though, because even if you have a gigantic world where literally everything's explorable, it's not like there's a certain radius where you have things loaded in. There's a certain radius where you have, NPCs being calculated in terms of like their actual walking paths and stuff like that. But beyond that, like, it's not like something that's 100 miles away is taking up is actively loaded in memory and taking up resources at that moment. So where's the trade-off with graphics at that point? Because like, even
you can't have this world of this deep, incredible AI like these. You're going to be controlling hundreds upon hundreds of soldiers, and you're going to be like putting an army together, and they're all doing things in real time, constantly doing stuff in real time. You can't have that in a world where you also have a 4K world setup. You just don't have that.
Is that just a console limitation, basically?
Well, I mean, that's any kind of a limitation. Like right now, I can program in, hundreds of enemies to be fighting in Skyrim, constantly battling it out and all of these different things, and taking it from like this like 4-on-4 fight that usually ends up happening to this like this 8-on-8 fight. Sorry, not just 8-on-8, doubling that, but doing like 50 versus 50. But the thing is that does not last at all. So
I'm not sure I mean,
crashes out just by trying to do that.
I'm not sure I agree with you on this point, because I feel like there's optimizations that could be made to really limit what's being calculated outside of what's within your specific field of view. And you could at least have Master Chief looking, or, well, you know, characters that are up close looking pretty high fidelity, even if, you know, the guys running around in the, like, outside of your field of view, they don't even have to be rendered at all.
But they do. But it takes the engine is required to run that, because again, you're not the whole system is running those combat experiences all at that same time. So while you are off doing whatever you're doing on your side of the map, the game is rendering is not necessarily rendering, but it's calculating these NPCs and these AIs fighting back and forth with their own armies, and that's just one group. It's tracking everything in real time.
But doesn't that run on different hardware though? Isn't that the whole point of having a dedicated graphics card? That like one is your graphics calculations are being made on one piece of hardware, while you know I mean, I get that there are bottlenecks and trade-offs and stuff, so I'm kind of oversimplifying it, but it does. Isn't that calculated on a different part of the console, is what I'm asking.
No. Like, it's not, and it never has been. Like, I mean, yeah, you have some graphical stuff that's a little bit different, but again, you can't run, like, if you try and force 100 NPCs into Skyrim, it's going to crash.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crashing not because of the graphical limitations, but because of the processing limitations of the computer. Like, you just can't do that flipping that switch. And I mean, if all of the games could run like you're suggesting, then we wouldn't have any problems with like just setting up a massive world full of tens of thousands of NPCs and having cities that are actual cities with like thousands upon thousands of NPCs in them. We just can't have that right now, whether you're rendering it or not. One of the greatest like AI programs that they're working on right now, which I'm really not supposed to talk about, is renders like something like 500,000 unique NPCs doing different things all at the same time. And it's like, that is not something that any computer can just do. I mean, you need a supercomputer just to run that kind of a concept, because it's like, can you have them like running around with a basic like combat script in like some kind of RTS like Age of Empires? It's like, yes. Can you have them running advanced like concept AIs that are running around with like concepts of like, I need to eat, I need to sleep, and then I need to do this, and then I need to do that, and all the other all of the other stuff that's happening in the background. It's like, can you do that all at the same time? And it's like, no, you can't. Not
in real time. Not in real time, but that's where the optimization.
Supercomputer at the very minimum, just to run a basic thing like that on top of everything else that's running.
Yeah.
And that's why this is such a big step, because this new AI system is literally doing hundreds of times more things that most computers have been able to do in the past. That's why this is such a good that's why this is such a good event and such a good thing to do. It's like, yes, that is a legitimately like very good thing to have show up here, because this is setting a new trend. This is setting a new benchmark for everything going forward. And this is really, 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 really good. And the fact that they didn't show that properly is kind of weird. So
I definitely agree there was a marketing to not feature the aspects of the open world and all of the things that they're planning for that, all of the like factions and how they interact and all of that stuff. I agree, not a good marketing decision on their part, but I don't think I agree about the graphics being a hard. They might be a hardware limitation, but that it's a trade-off with everything going on in the open world. Don't necessarily agree about that point. But I mean, you could be right, but it just from what I know about how they optimize things, it just doesn't seem to make sense. But anyway, regardless, again, none of this means it's going to be a bad game necessarily. I have some screenshots. We don't necessarily need to, rip on the graphics too much because we've already kind of talked about it. Everyone kind of understands, I think. It just, like, you look at this screenshot of Master Chief here. He looks like he's made of plastic, and that's just kind of disappointing. We have got some concept art of this villain, who I believe either his name is Escharum or that's his title. I'm not 100% sure, but this is some concept art. You see, he looks really awesome here, and this next one was a cutscene too. That's what's baffling about this. If I transfer over to how he actually looks in engine, he doesn't look nearly like the detail, the texture, the depth, just gone. Like, he looks, everything we saw in this game just looks so flat, so like a bunch of plastic miniatures that happen to be animated. Mm-hmm. Which is just unfortunate. I feel like, even if they couldn't get the kind of extreme fidelity that maybe people want at 4K 120 frames per second, I feel like they could do better than this, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's my thoughts on it. Now, if we talk about the actual combat and gameplay, it looks like standard Halo combat. That was also part of it that was kind of disappointing. They've added some things. They've added the grappling hook, which people have been kind of debating, is that even that spectacular? Because it's been in a lot of other games already. Okay, but it's a neat addition to this. There's some, like the one-way shield that they featured. There's some interesting things, I think, that are going to add a tactical aspect to the combat. But I was disappointed with the AI, the enemy AI that I saw. They were just kind of running around willy-nilly, just standing there waiting to get shot in a lot of cases. And then when the drop canisters came down and the two brutes came out, both of them busted out and did exactly the same sort of initialization animation, like, oh, I'm gonna kill you now, and kind of showboating there for a moment, and it was enough time for Master Chief to stick one with a plasma grenade and then shoot the other a bunch, and so they died pretty quickly. Was not impressed. Like, have your brutes come out swinging.
Again, this is basic. Like, this was played on probably easy mode. Like, the number of shots that it took to kill anything was like a single shot. All games are shown being played in either like the easy mode, which I don't agree with. Like, just get that off the table first. I don't agree that they should be showing easy mode gameplay. I think they should be showing hard or usually the top 30 or 40%. That's what they should be showing. But this was definitely easy mode, which again is they have different moves. They have different all Halo games in the past have had different they operate a little bit differently. Well, not all Halo games, but most Halo games in the past is they operate differently on different levels of difficulty. And I don't agree that they should be showing that. But what you're talking about, that's a basic limitation of the normal concept.
Yeah, so, no, you're probably right. It was probably on easy difficulty. It was clearly played on a controller. As opposed, that's to be expected. We were watching the Xbox showcase after all. Anyway, what are your thoughts, Moontag? If you have any about Halo.
Well, I haven't played it that much, so I don't really have much.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I feel like
I've never been
this was one of our our games we used to play way back in the day was the original Halo and then Halo 2. But you don't seem very emotionally invested in Halo lately, which I'm not really either. But I was definitely interested in what they're doing for this, and I'll probably still check it out.
I'm interested in the tech on this. That's the thing that I'm interested with the most. Is that I'm very, very interested in how they're approaching the technology of the game, and yeah, that's really where like I want to focus on. So yeah, like this tech that they've been offering, like if this works the way that it is, yeah, the game might not be great, but like this new technology is going to be absolutely amazing for stuff moving forward. So yeah, we're gonna see how exactly that plays out. Because I can imagine that this is what they've been working on for 5 years or something like that. I want to see this tech now improved and then put to use in the new Fable game.
Yes, Fable.
Because that is going to be far more interesting than just the Halo series. The Halo series, this is the introduction of this technology. And it's like the introduction of like any new technology when you get in game. It's like the first time we had like 3D games, it's like they weren't nearly as good as what 2D games were offering, but because they were 3D, some people lost their minds and they were like, "Oh my god, is that so amazing? I'm moving to 3-dimensional space. Can you believe this?" It's like, but at the same time, it's like other games had a much higher skill ceiling than some of these first like 3D games. Some of these first 3D games were, as far as like skill-based stuff goes, were garbage. Were just garbage. But now not necessarily so much. So
there's another good question from the chat from Sword Sister, asking why haven't they showed anything about the flight simulator?
That's a good question.
As in, like Microsoft Flight Simulator, or like the flight simulator within Halo?
I think within Halo.
I would imagine it was. I would maybe you can clarify, Sword Sister. I would imagine she was actually asking about Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Okay. So I do like those flight simulation games where I can pretend I'm in a plane and I'm a super cool helicopter pilot or something.
Oh yeah. Microsoft Flight Simulator. They're doing a really good job with that, but I think that's kind of like, it's one of the scenarios is like, it's mostly just what's it called? Like it's the fans for the game. They don't really convert a lot of, like if they were to showcase that in this one, they wouldn't pick up very many people that are interested in that. Flight Sim has and always has been kind of like this very niche game that a lot of people play very seriously, but and it's crazy fun. Like there's a video of people like role playing in Flight Simulator. So I'm not joking. There are people who role play as the flight. Who's the people in the towers? What do they call those? Like the
the air traffic controllers. Like that.
Yeah. So they're role playing as air traffic controllers as people make flights in real time. So a guy flying from like Washington from Washington down to Florida, we'll say that Washington to Florida or Washington to Seattle. It's like you literally have people who are role playing as a air traffic controller within the game, and that's what they're doing. That's what they get their enjoyment out of, which is crazy. Which is very strange and interesting. That's
not your thing.
Really, not my thing. Not in the slightest. I love a good bout of like role play in games, but role playing as an air traffic controller, and it's funny because the guys take it very seriously. Because there was this dude who showed up in this one video. I think it's pretty famous, and he's like, he has a trike, and he's like talking like he's like flying a Boeing 747, and the guy responding is like still again acting as if an air traffic controller would be like, no, you're not getting up to 10,000 feet, and that is you're going to get to the end of the runway. That's about it. And it's just like the hilarity of the situation is, it's really funny. Like it really is very funny, but yeah, not something that they showcase on like the big stuff to younger gamers. That's not typically what they do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it is very niche. However, Robin says, and I agree, don't knock it before you try it. Go install that flight simulator and try your hand at being an air traffic controller. I don't know. Yeah, you may love it. It may be the next WoW for you.
Right?
highly unlikely.
All right. Somebody mentioned Fable before, so let's talk about that. So, I mean, it was a cinematic trailer. It was very funny, at least the one very unexpected turn that happened at the end.
You have a really twisted sense of humor, then sure, yeah, why not?
Yeah. Are either of you Fable fans from back in the day?
So I played the first two pretty hardcore, but I did not play the other one. So like the one that went like really really bad that everybody hates.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't do that one very much.
But Moon, it sounded like you had something to say about it. Do you have are you excited for this one?
I am excited to see what they do with it because I've just played the most recent one. I think it was like Fable 3, and like I got through to it all the way to the end, and I think it's really interesting how like you can play like with the different alignments, right? And you see your choices. I really like that sort of storytelling where it's like kind of like choose your own adventure, right?
So we'll see if they keep that same system in this one, then versus like just focusing more on like having this big open world kind of thing. And I suspect that we're going to have both. I suspect that it's going to be kind of this dark humor fantasy thing, and yeah, that'll be very interesting. I'll be more impressed if you can play as like literally almost any creature. Like if you could play as anything from a fairy to a human to a giant and absolutely everything in between. Kudos if they do that. I don't know if they're going to do that though. I suspect that it'll probably just follow the story of a centralized hero again, and you get to just customize the hero, and that's about it. That's about that.
That I read somewhere that there's a rumor that it's actually an MMO set in the Fable universe. I
doubt that because we would have heard about it by now, especially in the MMO circles that I sometimes traffic in. It's sometimes journey and not traffic. That's
unfortunate wording there.
Yeah, in some of those circles, absolutely, I would have heard about that by now. Not a guarantee. I mean, it would be, I would be shocked if they managed to keep it under wraps, but not necessarily impossible. But for the most part, I'm kind of like, yeah, I really don't think that this is I don't think this is a thing.
Yeah. Well, Microsoft is teasing it as a new beginning for the legendary franchise, as well as a land of fantastical creatures and wondrous places. So, the teaser they showed was gorgeous, but again, we didn't get much info about the game. There's a bunch of other stuff we saw. Phantasy Star Online 2, New Genesis, Crossfire X, The Medium we saw. We've seen that one before, but we saw a new trailer for that. And then there's this Tetris Effect Connected, some sort of I guess that's a series, a new version of Tetris Effect that is
multiplayer
Tetris. Interesting. And it was
that's awesome.
And I mean, multiplayer Tetris is nothing new, but as far as like competing against one another, but it looked like you could like there was some crossover between people's play screens, so like you could help people get lines or something, like move your pieces into somebody else's play space, something to that effect. So I only caught a glimpse of it, but it looked interesting if you're into that. Yeah, so a bunch of other stuff, some more stuff. So Destiny 2 Beyond Light, Psychonauts 2.
I love Jack Black singing in Psychonauts. Oh my god, it was pretty great. Talking about it too, I was like, yes, that was a trailer to watch. I enjoyed it quite thoroughly.
He
And the game,
yeah.
so deep.
Jack Black definitely sings really well.
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah, which is funny because we just watched the Jack Black episode on Community.
Yes.
And
Oh god.
so it was pretty hilarious.
Yeah. So remastered, or not remastered so much, but Ori and the Will of the Wisps, enhanced for the new console. That's really, I thought that was really great. I mean, it looks beautiful as is, but if they're really enhancing that game to take advantage of the new console's capabilities, that's fantastic. It was a game called Tell Me Why, which a lot of people, well, as it was playing, were like, "Is this a new Life is Strange?" But it's a standalone game. Looks like it's another chapter-based one. However you feel about that. Game called
definitely, Telltale has left the door open for this, and it's not that their games were bad or designed poorly. It's that their games were marketed and like their financial system was set up just horrendously. They would take a loan for basically the entire cost of making the game, make the game would do well, and they would end up having to pay back pretty much all of the profits that they made, which then they made, then they would work on making another game, and then they would like end up doing it's a very terrible if you're ever an investor, just stick clear of that. Like, good lord, that's probably one of the stupidest formats of investing you could do. Is like it's like being in a company where it's like you just all you have for stock management is just in time delivery, which is great when everything is working smoothly, but the second that everything does not work smoothly, you're screwed. And you're not screwed a little bit, you're screwed a lot. Like a lot. So yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, and then a game called Everwild that from Rare that caught a lot of people's interest.
Pretty.
It is, yeah, it's a very nice looking game. Forza Motorsport, graphics just looked amazing. Racing game, obviously, and State of Decay 3. It was a cinematic trailer. Sorry.
Yeah, I was really shocked with that. I was not expecting one so quickly. Shocked that has come out already. State of Decay number 2 didn't do too well. But yeah, maybe they're just using this to kind of reset it and then implement a bunch of new tech that they couldn't add in to number 3. So,
and then
very, very interesting in this.
Then there was Stalker 2, which Last Known Meal was very excited for when that was announced. Official trailer came out for that. It's not a game series that I'm terribly familiar with. Yeah, it's quite an old. It's getting to be an older series now, but yeah, again, it's not my thing. But apparently, there were a lot of people excited for that one as well. So, what was your highlight, Moontag? What was your favorite thing that you remember from the Xbox showcase?
Well, between Grounded, Everwild, even Ori, because like that game was just beautiful, so I wouldn't mind playing it again. And Fable, of course, and Sword Sister mentioned in the chat Warhammer as well.
Oh yeah, Warhammer 40K. Just scrolling through to find that one here.
The new Warhammer game. It's very dark and gritty, and the dark and gritty things, like I do like them for the most part. They're pretty good. It is kind of Yeah, it is kind of I don't know what the proper term is. It's like it's a super depressing world. Like it's a super depressing world. It's so depressing, but that's maybe what makes it really good. And this one appears to be another team type game, but we're still also waiting for the Underhive. So
Yeah.
yeah, this is kind of interesting. I'll see. It'll be interesting to kind of see what they put out with this.
Mm-hmm.
But they also seem to be really like set on attacking their fans recently, which is kind of weird because again, it's like these people see like monsters everywhere they turn, and I don't think that's the case. I think most of the people that they assume are monsters are probably just emo kids trying to get a rise out of you. I mean, not even kids. Like it's just like adults who like go out of their way to like poke fun at you is or like to rile you up is like it's a surprisingly common thing.
There's even a
amongst
word for it. It's like
yeah
ogre or goblin or something. I don't can't
yeah
remember.
yeah like some kind of a green thing that sits under a bridge and waits for you to pass by so that they can like mock you or like kind of get your attention. Yeah.
And then just finally, we did get a little bit of an update on Hellblade 2. We didn't see any new gameplay, but we found out that it will be set in Iceland, which is awesome, and they're using Unreal Engine 5, so it should look amazing.
I really enjoyed that game. Just like the environment and the audio is just on point.
Yeah, I never did finish it just because I ran out of time, but what I did play of it, I thoroughly enjoyed. Senua's Sacrifice.
It's a really nice balance of like puzzle solving and like real time sort of fighting.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
All right. You are listening to the Augmented Reality Podcast, and we love seeing everybody so active in the live chat. If you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, we welcome you to join our Discord community. You can find the link in the description below. It's a place where you can chat with us and other Triple S community members about all the things we love to talk about and stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. Click the link below to join. Be sure to say hi to us in the welcome channel. We had a bunch of people, Moontag, asking who you were early on in the chat, so maybe I'll need to give you a more proper introduction for the next little while. Moontag is somebody who you probably have seen her name if you have been on our Discord server, but she's not a guest. She's one of ours. She's part of the crew, and clearly we have a couple of technical audio kinks to work out, so we'll definitely work on that this week. But hers is a voice you're going to be hearing more regularly. I don't know if she'll be on every podcast, but she's going to be working with us on doing some social media stuff for us, hopefully some live streaming, some other stuff. But you're also very active in our Discord community, and you had an announcement you wanted to make, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, so Crunchyroll has announced that on July 28th, they're going to be streaming for free for anybody Goblin Slayer the movie. So I was
Nice.
thinking if you guys want to join in, come hop over to our Discord. I'll be streaming it live that day.
Nice. So watch party. So do you have to have a Crunchyroll account to watch it?
No,
I think you can make a free Crunchyroll account. Then obviously you like can turn on payments for the live streaming and all that stuff. But no, this is like they're streaming it out live, so we're gonna be able to stream it and restream it as long as we're not charging for it out to everybody, and everybody can pick that up. Goblin Slayer is probably one of the best ongoing series at the moment. Can't wait for season 2. This is the kind of the movie that bridges season 1, season 2. You do not need to have watched the first season in order to enjoy the show. It is a brutal, dark. It's basically a D&D experience that like they literally just call each other by their tags. So like Goblin Slayer is the Goblin Slayer, and then you've got the Then you've got the healer, you've got the wizard, you've got the archer, the ranger, like all of that stuff is, yeah. And so that is very, very, very interesting. And I really like it, and it's a pretty decent game. Or sorry, pretty decent show.
Pretty
And,
decent. Yeah.
yeah.
Is there a
Cool.
specific time that it's streaming?
Okay, codes. I'll just pull it up here. Slayer.
Well, we can make an announcement for it on the Discord
No,
server.
it'll be an all day thing.
You think, okay, so it's not like streaming at a specific time, but you can watch it.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll set a time. If you're interested in joining in on that, join our Discord server, and we'll put up an announcement. And there's some voice rooms we can, watch together in and chat while we're doing that. And yeah, that should be a lot of fun. We've done that with a bunch of the live streamed gaming events this summer, and it's been a blast just connecting as a community, watching these events, and yeah, just chatting together has been the most fun part. Making cracking jokes and making fun of stuff, or being like, "Oh, that's cool." One final announcement. We're in the last couple of days for you to get in on our giveaway of a Cyberpunk Red prize pack worth $500, courtesy of Artalsorian Games and Monster Fight Club. The prize pack contains the Cyberpunk Red Jumpstart Kit. When it comes available, it'll have the Cyberpunk Red Core Rulebook, signed by Mike Pondsmith, and so they'll be sending that out, once that's actually published. It's not available yet, but you'll get the other stuff in advance. It also includes 16 character miniatures for your Cyberpunk Red game, plus 9 square feet of scenery, urban terrain scenery from Monster Scenery Metropolis. That's from Monster Fight Club. They make miniatures and terrain for tabletop RPG gaming. So this urban terrain is not specifically like, you can use it for whatever game you want, but it works well with Cyberpunk Red if you want an urban campaign, and they so they partnered with Artalsorian Games on that. It's really cool how it's set up. It's all modular. You can put the buildings together in different ways, and there's different other types of flair and stuff that comes along with it. So it's really cool. Yeah, so if you want to enter to win all of that, worth about $500, you have to get your entry in before Tuesday, or by Tuesday, July 28th. So Wednesday morning when I wake up, I'm going to be sorting through the entries, and we're going to start the process of picking a winner. But what you do is you create an original piece of artwork that answers the question, what does cyberpunk mean to you? It can be any kind of artwork you like. It can be a song. It can be an interpretive dance. It can be a painting. It can be photography if you like. It can be a video. It can be whatever you like. Whatever you can think of, you can submit. And you submit that either on our Discord server, there's a special room for it, or you can post your entry on Twitter or Parler using the hashtag #SSS giveaway. You must include the hashtag or we will not see your entry. Either one of those two ways. I mean, most of the entries have come in through our Discord server, though, so definitely check that out. And then, yeah. So you have till the end of Tuesday to get that in. So, yeah, get your entries in to win that. All right. So let's move on to talking about the Ubisoft stuff. By the way, slam that like button if you haven't already. Tells YouTube that you appreciate this content. So there's been some shakeups at Ubisoft, and Jason Schreier, who formerly of Kotaku, now works for Bloomberg, has done what he does, investigative reporting into what's going on with big gaming studios, and so he dug into what's been going on at Ubisoft. And now, Saib, you have a lot to say about this, because you've been hearing rumors for a long time. What's going on there, and there's some interesting, like, there's been rumors of it being a real bro culture, with some sexist stuff happening, Plus, just on the game development side, on the game, on the game design side, for a long time it's felt like most of Ubisoft's games were kind of a cookie cutter, and we know why now. Ubisoft's chief creative officer, Sergei Haskoe, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, but I'm just going to call him Sergei. He was the dude who's been... So Ubisoft was started by 5 brothers way back in the 80s. And Sergei joined the company early on and almost became like one of the family, apparently. And he for years, has been the guy who had the power to greenlight games, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so like literally everything went through this guy.
Yeah. You had to get him. You had to play the game in order to get the approval to get into the game.
And he basically had a specific way of doing things, a specific thing he liked. He believed that female protagonists don't sell, which is bullshit.
I mean, I don't understand. Like, it's the same thing as like, oh, female protagonists don't sell movies. It's like, have you never heard of Alien? Have you never heard of, I don't know, like pretty much every other movie ever made? Like,
yeah, it's
where do people get this stuff from?
It doesn't make any sense.
It's like,
there's been...
Well, I mean, I heard we ranted on this when the whole Star Trek thing was going on, and I still just, it boils my absolute blood when I hear, oh, well, the only reason why the newest Star Trek show, which is now the second newest Star Trek show, it didn't do well is because it had a female captain. It's like, excuse me, Janeway was my favorite, but then I would hear them say, "Who's Janeway?" And I'd just be like, you don't even know what you're talking about. Name me how many captain shows were in the Star Trek universe. So you had the first one. You mean with William Shatner? Yeah, and then you had the one with the bald guy. And it's like, is that it? Yeah, and I can't wait until they put they get some other representation in there. I'm like, oh, like maybe, I don't know, just like maybe an African American guy running a station and having control over a special ship. Yeah, that'd be really cool. Yeah, they already have that. And it's like, this is the level of stupidity that you're talking to.
Yeah, it's like It's like they didn't look around at some of the most popular game series. I mean, you could go all the way back to Metroid if you like. I mean, it wasn't revealed that Samus is female till the end of the game, but it was there. And then I don't know. There's this little game that came out about somebody like robbing tombs. What's it called?
Yeah.
Called Tomb Robber, Tomb Explorer. I don't know. Just a little series that's
well, and it's just again, it's frustrating that that this is that we constantly hear this happening. Now, so one of the things that was so there was some community pressure built up on this is like, hey, we'd really like, some of your Ubisoft games to feature more than the same protagonist just over and over and over and over and over again. Maybe you could, like, I don't know, include some different characters in that. And I remember, so one of these things that's like just absolutely mental is that I had heard back in the day from a very reliable source that there was somebody at Ubisoft who said, no, we're not going to do that. We're never going to do that. And he held back on it for quite a while until finally he made a laughing joke. He goes, oh, I know what to do for this. I know what to do for this. So for the first Ubisoft game where you could have a female player was the same game that you could play as a dog for the first time. And there was a big joke running around in the studio about, haha, isn't that so much funny? What, a bunch of B words. And this just, I mean, this is one of these things that it's like, again, if you were to come out and say this a couple of years ago, it'd be like, no, that's not true. That's BS. It's like, and it turns out, actually, it's a whole lot more believable now than it was back then.
Yeah, apparently, like, we're talking about a guy who he would host creative meetings with staff from Ubisoft at strip clubs.
Yeah. And again, something else that if I came out and said this as an accusation, me being me and our smaller platform here, it wouldn't have been it wouldn't have been tolerated. It would have been mocked as like rumor and not true and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, Sergey is out now, as are two other lead people from the Ubisoft companies, Yanis Malat, managing director of Ubisoft's Canadian studios, and Cécile Cornet, the company's global head of HR. Now, speaking of HR, apparently it's come out that their HR.
Well, let me just talk about the Canadian studio, because this hits a little close to home. This guy was a real POS, always has been. Would openly mock
Malat.
The guy. Again, this is supposedly because I don't want to get sued.
Okay.
Real piece of garbage, like real piece of garbage. Makes just some of the worst crude, crass jokes, and just like really disgusting overall. And yeah, this is the people that this is the thing that's had been going on for years. Just absolutely years of this kind of ridiculous behavior coming out of these studios. That again, it's like, unless it was Jason Schreier putting it out, nobody believes this. And so now that it's finally out, I'm good. I'm glad. I'm glad that it's finally gotten out after so many years of these people running this studio in the background, just making some of the worst crass comments about certain types of players or certain people in general, and nobody ever calls this stuff out. And this isn't the same as like cancel culture or anything like that, because it's not a I don't want to get into that. This isn't the same, because it's like this has been around for a long time, and these people have actively hid behind shields and walls of going, oh yeah, no, not us, and they've had a lineup of people defending them constantly for this. It's like gross. It's just gross.
Also, thanks to Rensten for the super chat donation. They put, "What do you mean? Lara Croft is male. No one cared about Eris, and Princess Peach is always in another castle."
Right.
Yes.
Thank you for the super chat, Ren. It's very helpful.
If Lara Croft is male, that makes me question things about myself. Eris, Princess Peach, though, you're right. Princess Peach, always in another castle, always helplessly needing to be rescued by Mario. Yep. Game's toxic.
And there's another good comment from Sunglare. "What doesn't sell is female characters that look like men." And I'm like, 100%. Like, heck, did you see what they did to... Oh, crap. I lost her name. The one that they turned into they did a reboot of it. She's got gold wings. Wonder Woman? Was it Wonder Woman? No, it was the other one. Was it? They did a cartoon reboot in like their teen years of this hero.
No.
There we go. She-Ra.
Yeah.
She-Ra, okay.
She-Ra.
She-Ra. And like when I saw like the young She-Ra, I was like, who is this? Who is this child? I can't tell who they are. Like, it didn't fit my image of She-Ra at all.
Yeah, it's nothing against the, it just didn't fit, like, the concept.
No.
When I think She-Ra, I actually think, like, 1950s, like, lady, typically. That's what I think. But yeah, they really kind of spat on that memory.
Boys ever.
Anyway, the idea that female protagonists don't sell, that's just garbage. Anyway.
Complete
Sorry?
Complete bunk.
Yeah,
yes.
it absolutely is. But yeah, this So I mean, Sergey just had his own idea, and that's just why so many Ubisoft games just started to feel the same. Is they were all they were all greenlit and sort of overseen by the same guy. But anyway, you were talking about oh yeah, and then that it goes beyond Sergey. Like the head of HR resigned as well, and apparently there was a lot of complaints made to HR at the company.
This is so I had heard this from pretty much everybody I spoke to. I was always like, well, why can't you go to HR about this? And they would laugh and they say, no, HR is like, they're, it's not just that they're on the take, it's like that they actively, like, you know, chase this down and make this happen this way. And they, you know, they'll sit there and shrug their shoulders and say, oh yeah, no big deal. So, yeah, fake frauds, like, just hypocrisy just drives me mental.
Mm-hmm.
Now, supposedly, the family in charge, the I'm gonna butcher this pronunciation, but the Guillemot family, they're apparently making changes to make things better.
And I call bull because they were here this whole time. They knew. They also were there more often than not in those same strip clubs, having those same meetings, and letting this guy run their entire table of games, like just their entire library of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that was working that way up until about 2 years ago. Still, because in the original concept for the last two Assassin's Creed games, actually the last three major Assassin's Creed, London, Greece, and Egypt, you were all supposed to have like this different story. And in the Egypt one, it was like main character, the dude, what's his name?
I can't remember his name, but yeah, originally the original idea was for him to be killed off, and then you play the remainder of the game as his wife, and that Sergey vetoed that, and just so there are small segments now where you play as the wife, but then you know, the main dude is that's the main character for the entire game.
Yep. And again, it's like I just want choice. I want choice in these games. I want the you know, Mass Effect was really good because you could just play as whoever you wanted, and you just make whatever you want. And I like those games. I prefer those games. I think the story writing is better when you're playing those games that way, where you just write whatever. Some people say that is that doesn't matter. Like that's not. I can't remember who it was, but somebody got really upset when the idea was put out. It was like, well, why not just have games with, like, you know, choose your own protagonist? It's like it doesn't count. It's like, how does it not count? How does Mass Effect, with one of the strongest female lead characters I have ever played, how does that not count?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't count because of what? Like, explain that to me.
Exactly.
Right.
So,
Really make what their motives are.
Yeah, it's always been about control.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, no, it just generally, like, yeah. So this was this coming out now. There's a lot more to it. There's probably a lot more heads that are going to roll on this now, because for a while they were getting by with just making generalized okayish content, but it was getting worse and worse and worse and more repetitive, and it was hurting their bottom line. So now they realize that they better either make this thing work, or they're going to be this thing called bankrupt.
Right. So let's end on this question then. With Sergey out the door, and apparently there's about 7 people who were promoted to his position, although, again, I guess 2 of them have now been ousted or left. Mm-hmm. Do you think this is going to change what we see in Ubisoft games going forward?
It'll change it a little bit, but now I'm worried that they'll go too far off in the other direction, and they'll try and, like, again, continue to pander and continue to be fake, and it's like it never, you know, they only seem to know how to do an extreme. right? They're either an extreme on one side or they're an extreme on the other side, and they can never really, really, really like stick to anything because they're always just like, oh yeah, no, I'm gonna do this, and then it's bad, and then oh well, I'm gonna do that, and it's even worse. And it's like,
Right.
it would be nice if this didn't work this way.
Mhm.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it does, and unfortunately, it probably will continue to do so. So.
All right. I think that's about it for that. And I think that's about it for the show today. So thank you so much, everybody, for... Why is my music not playing? Yeah, there we go. That's why. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining the show today. Thank you for the excellent conversation in the chat, for supporting the show by listening live or after the fact. We really appreciate it. Don't forget to slam that like button before you leave. It really helps us out, tells YouTube that you appreciate this content. Also commenting, subscribing, hitting the notification bell, all of that increases the chances that YouTube will recommend this content to other people, so we really appreciate all of those things. Special thank you to our Patreon supporters and our channel members who help make this content possible. Our big damn heroes on Patreon: Robin, Shua82, Time Bean, Schoolaman, Lady Reaver, 2 anonymous supporters at that tier on Patreon. Really appreciate all of you. Our channel members on YouTube: Mr. Pazernik, Jer Schultz, Game Notes, Night City Punk, Terra K, and Somnolence. That's right. No music means infinite podcast. Yes, if only, hey. Thank you to all of our channel members. And if you're listening after the fact on one of the audio-only platforms, we appreciate your interactions there as well. But don't forget, you can join the live show on YouTube Wednesdays and Saturdays, where you can interact with us and other listeners and be a part of the discussion. See the Discord server for exact times and schedules. Augmented Reality is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. My name is Ash. On behalf of Cyb and Moontag, thank you all so much for listening. We'll talk to you again very soon.